Good afternoon, everyone. I'll take a few minutes to walk through the trip over the next several days, and then I'll be happy to take your questions. And I would just ask for your patience because there's quite a bit to get through, given an action-packed schedule that the President has across 3 stops over a week. Before I get into the President's travel across North Africa and Asia, I want to provide a brief update on our efforts to ensure Ukraine has what it needs to defend itself. Today, the United States will be announcing another package of security assistance for Ukraine, including important air defense contributions like missiles for Hawk air defense systems, as well as 4 U.S. Avenger air defense systems that come equipped with Stinger missiles. This equipment will complement other air defense contributions announced by our allies and partners in the context of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group that Secretary Austin chairs. When I was in Kyiv last week, I had the chance to consult directly with President Zelensky and his team on the ground about what Ukraine needs to be in the strongest position possible on the battlefield. This increased air defense will be critical for Ukraine as Russia continues to use cruise missiles and Iranian-made drones to attack critical civilian infrastructure. With that, let me turn to the trip. As you all know, tonight the President departs for Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, where tomorrow he will participate in the COP27 climate conference and hold a bilateral meeting with President el-Sisi. The President heads to COP27 with historic momentum on climate, thanks to the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act and other significant steps that put us on an enduring path towards meeting our ambitions and clean energy goals. While he's on the ground, he'll speak to his personal commitment to addressing the climate crisis. He'll highlight some of the progress the United States has made, both here at home and in rallying action on climate around the world. And he'll underscore the need to go further, faster, to help the most vulnerable communities build their resilience without losing sight of the need for the world, and particularly for the major economies, to cut emissions drastically in this decisive decade. While in Egypt, President Biden will also meet with President el-Sisi, as I mentioned, to discuss a number of critical regional and bilateral issues following on his visit to the Middle East earlier this year, where he also had an opportunity to sit with President el-Sisi. On Saturday, he'll arrive in Cambodia and attend the U.S.-ASEAN Summit. He'll reaffirm the United States' strong support for ASEAN centrality and build on the achievements of the historic U.S.-ASEAN Special Summit that was held in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. He will also hold a bilateral meeting with 2022 ASEAN Chair, the Prime Minister of Cambodia, Hun Sen. On Sunday in Cambodia, he will participate in the East Asia Summit. He will underscore U.S. support for the ASEAN-led regional architecture in the Indo-Pacific and discuss opportunities to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific that is more connected, more prosperous, more secure, and more resilient. He'll also hold bilateral and trilateral meetings with the Prime Minister of Japan and the President of Korea in light of the continuing nuclear and missile threats posed by the DPRK, as well as growing alignment among our countries in promoting peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. On Monday, President Biden will be in Bali, Indonesia, where he will hold a bilateral meeting with Indonesian President Joko Widodo. He will thank President Widodo for his leadership, his chairmanship of the G20, and highlight the growing importance of the U.S.-Indonesia strategic partnership. Later in the day on Monday, President Biden will hold a bilateral meeting with President Xi Jinping of China. This is the first time that President Biden and President Xi will have this is the first time that they will meet face-to-face since President Biden became president. President Biden has made it a priority to keep lines of communication open with President Xi, to responsibly manage the competition between our two countries, and he believes there is no more important channel than that between the leaders of the United States and China. From day one of the Biden administration, our approach to the PRC has followed the same fundamentals. Invest in the foundations of our strength here at home, align our efforts with a network of allies and partners, and compete responsibly to defend and advance our interests and those of like-minded nations. The meeting between President Biden and President Xi will be an in-depth and substantive opportunity to better understand one another's priorities and intentions, to address differences, and to identify areas where we can work together. Because working together to address common problems is in our interest, and because it is what the world expects of responsible powers. On Tuesday and Wednesday, the President will attend the G20 Summit, where he'll focus on a range of pressing global economic challenges, especially for emerging and vulnerable economies, including energy security and the clean energy transition, food security, debt relief for low and middle-income countries, multilateral development bank reform, and the launch of a pandemic preparedness fund. He will also rally like-minded nations to speak out forcefully against Russia's illegal invasion and illegal war in Ukraine, which has exacerbated many of these challenges. President Biden will join with fellow G7 and G20 leaders to host an event on the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, PGII, where the U.S. and other partners will announce a series of high-impact infrastructure projects across the developing world. The President will have the opportunity to hold a number of other bilateral meetings on the margins of the G20, and will announce those in due course. Among others, we expect that he'll have the chance to sit for the first time with the prime ministers of both the United Kingdom and Italy, the new prime ministers who have both recently taken office. This trip comes at an important moment, and President Biden heads off with the wind at his back. The United States has helped rally the world to oppose Russian aggression in Ukraine. We have built a strong foundation of engagement with allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific. We've launched impactful new initiatives in the Indo-Pacific, including PGII and the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. We're leading collective efforts on climate, health, food, and energy security. And we've made far-reaching foundational investments in our industrial and innovation base and in modernizing our infrastructure here at home. So we believe that we are in a strong position to both navigate competition and to work with partners to solve the great challenges of our time. That's what President Biden intends to do on this trip, and thank you all for your patience, and look forward to answering your questions. Yes?